yeah, I'm talking about the triangle, which is with the pendulum represents the basic reach of this work. The pendulum is about our feelings. The triangle is about what we do. And like the pendulum, the triangle can relate to a really wide range of activities. And that's one of the ways I want to look at it today in terms of examples of the bottom of the triangle, which is accepted and rejected efforts, which in some ways is both the base of the triangle, obviously, but it is some of the strongest part of this work. And accepted efforts are things we have an ease with in doing. Time passes. We aren't aware of the energy that's being taken up. I can't push my chair further back, so I need to push my table further forward a bit without creating a catastrophe. Yeah, that's a bit better. Yeah, the accepted effort has a straightforward simplicity to it. It is when we are doing something, we are at ease with doing it. We accept the effort involved, that's where the word comes from. We're also the accepted effort, time passes quickly. We're not aware of the energy that's being taken up. We can transcend for the moment we are in the accepted effort. We can transcend other stuff around us that is pressing on us, causing us stress, causing us unhappiness. A strong, and this is in addition to, this is something I forgot to put in on the session on Sunday. A strong accepted effort will pick up a lot of other rejected efforts around them and give us a chance of turning them into accepted efforts. This part of the work, which is similar to the pendulum, is full of jargon at its first teaching. But like the pendulum, once we know it, we're not sort of worried about the jargon anymore. We just sort of got oh my God. Yeah, I feel it today. Oh, if I hit some sort of low, we just sort of use the pendulum in this without worrying about all the jargon and the definitions. And in a similar way with the triangle, it will get there, where we're just saying, oh, yeah, that's where I am on the triangle. I am in an accepted effort, but I feel it's a little fragile, okay? I need to watch it. I need to keep it as an accepted effort. But to go back to the other point I was just making, if we've got a large accepted effort going for us, it'll pick up a whole lot of other stuff. Very powerful. And the reverse is true. If we're in a heavy rejected effort, it can turn a lot of things around us into a rejected effort. There's a way, it's sort of common sense. Someone who's having, someone who's, work is a real accepted effort. They'll come home and she finds, the teenage kids, out of line, putting on a meal feels like a drag. And her husband's not being there for her, okay? But if there's that really strong accepted effort at work, that person will bring into the home those good feelings. So the kids will be pleased to see mum. Husband smartens up, and let's order a pizza. And let's order some ice cream as well as a pizza. Let's not worry about cooking. Someone can bring all that home and turn that, and even for those individual people, turn the sort of rejected effort into an accepted effort. And the other side of it, true, if a person's having a lousy time at work and comes home, walks in the door, yells at the kids, goes for husband and burns the dinner. Who knows? That's one of the ways the triangle and these two concepts are so powerful if we can use them on a cognitive level. If we can learn them on a cognitive level, if we can learn them as cognitive tools, as I like to, call them Pelham tools. If we can read the instruction book and, practice with it, can be extraordinarily powerful. Oh, that's what's going on. I am in this rejected effort. What I wanted to do today, and what I mentioned on Sunday, that we'd each bring some rejected efforts to this meeting, okay? Let me just stay with the teaching a little bit on rejected efforts. When we started looking at the triangle, we were looking at that side of it, which is where we're making decisions about a goal. This is the effort we're putting forward to reach the goal. If the accepted effort will have the almost whoosh in it, the sort of energy, the flow in it to take us towards our goal. Just to revise Sunday a little bit, we got to be careful not to stay in it too long. So just by staying in it too long, we turn an accepted effort into a rejected effort. And then the whole thing can feel like a rejected effort. So the timing is of the essence there. To put it simply, with the accepted it, one of the major ways of protecting the accepted effort is to quit while we're ahead. we still feel, let's finish this meeting now. We've worked hard. We've come to some resolutions, and let's finish while we're still all feeling good and get back to it Monday morning. And again, this is codified common sense. A lot of people know how to do that. But some of us at times will insist on staying in the meeting. Everyone gets tired. It turns a bit sour. It becomes a rejected effort. And then our feeling about the whole thing is a rejected effort. The way when we talk about feelings of accomplishment, the whole essence of that concept is the emphasis on the feeling and the difference between feelings of accomplishment and the accomplishment itself. Accepted effort, the accepted effort is almost just synonymous with feelings of accomplishment. It's just another way of addressing that issue. I talk about Pelham tools and a Pelham toolbox. And, I got to admit that in some ways it's a rather crowded toolbox. There's a lot of tools in there, okay? And, maybe at times there's too many tools in there. I know that's something I've got to sort of work with. But it is a tool, and how we're using the triangle to recognize the accepted effort and protect it. The piece I was talking about just now was not staying in too long. The other crucial way to protect the accepted effort is not to be too focused on the goal. There's a jargon phrase we use for that in this. It's sort of goal orientation. What it will be like when I quit drugs, or because there's a lot of applications of the triangle to substance abuse, straight across the board application. What it will be like when I'm free of drugs. And, that's where day at a time is another way of talking about not being too attached to the goal, being attached to one other day of sobriety. I'm not saying the goal's not important, but it needs to be in the background rather than the foreground. If it's too much in the foreground, where the moment-to-moment activities that we're putting in to reach that goal, can appear a bit insignificant. I've only saved $10. I've only lost 1 pound. I've only had 2 days when I haven't smoked a cigarette. The accepted effort has to be in the moment-to-moment, day-to-day activities. And focusing on the goal too much is going to get in the way of that. Moving on to rejected efforts, which I will look at today. The rejected effort is one of the most difficult. It represents some of the most difficult times in our life for any of us. We have a goal, we want to get there, we can't do it, we want to. It's got, my purpose of seeing the possible useful connections between the therapeutic world and the political world. One of the ways that people are oppressed is that they are forced into rejected efforts and kept there, okay? And the chances to have accepted efforts are denied them. It sort of parallels our work, that the way to oppress people is to keep them away from nourishing, sustaining purposes. Make it not possible for them to have them. Therefore, make it not possible to get those feelings of accomplishment which really give our life meaning, give us a sense that we know what we're doing. So that's sort of background to this material, and partly a revision of what I've done here recently. So what I wanted to do today was just to come up with rejected efforts that we have and have people make suggestions. So I'll start off. But so I am talking about my rejected effort, and then I'm asking people to come in and with suggestions about that. Because what we talk about in terms of turning rejected efforts into accepted efforts, formally, what we're doing is finding some way to bring positive thoughts and feelings into that rejected effort. That's what we're doing, bringing something positive in there. And that is something some people know. Some people will have music that they'll listen to a lot, and they'll have headphones and all sorts of access to music, which could turn a rejected effort into an accepted effort. I'll do it again. I use the example of my pens, okay? My colored pens. A couple of my grandkids knew I used those, and my youngest granddaughter, she's 6.5, but she'd done something really well at school. So I just gave her one of my pens, and it was a big deal. So as I was thinking about this today, and because I am in the low today, and as I was thinking about this from the point of being low, it was like, oh my God, everything. Do you want examples of rejected efforts? I could come one after another, after another, after another. That's what I felt. But let me, and often to capture the material in the forum, a lot of what we were looking at in resistance to nourishing change can almost be the part of our life we're looking at from that area, resistance to nourishing change. It's almost the same part of our life that we could apply the triangle to, because they're going to be rejected efforts within our resistance to nourishing change. That's why some of the material overlaps. I've got, this is it. I've got the sun streaming in on some of my favorite books and little art objects. It's very hard for me to hold on to my low when I'm looking at those. Okay. So there's some of, I guess, their gimmicks that, because that's the word we use. You know, what we need in terms of turning rejected efforts into accepted efforts, we call them gimmicks. It was David Pallen's word. I've held on to the word because I think it gives it that idiosyncratic quality, you know, looking around for something that will work. It's often very individual. So mine is exercise. You know, I live across the road from a park in King's Lynn. The park is called The Walks, and it's got a history. It's very, very, very English. The Walks were established about 300 years ago for the aristocracy to go and walk through the park and meet and converse with each other. There were two gates, and there were guards at each gate to keep people out who weren't the aristocracy or the elite. And the aristocracy and elite walked. That's why they're called the Walks, full of very old trees. And it is a place where people have fitness classes and joggers jog, and yeah, it's nice. It's literally, I walk out my front door, I walk across the road, I'm in the park. That's simple. And it's in my background. You know, I grew up in Australia, which is, you know, I grew up amongst fitness country, sport country. And I just don't do it. You know, somehow or other, you know, I could walk across there and jog. I could walk. It's not possible now, but not opened yet. But I think it's only weeks away. There's a gym and a swimming pool, which is a walk through the park. I go into the park, I walk through the park, I come out of the park, and I'm at the gym, which has a swimming pool. And even if it wasn't COVID, I'd still probably have trouble getting there. And I grew up swimming. I'm a good swimmer. I like swimming. So the sort of format I'd like, I don't quite how we do it on Zoom. I haven't worked that, so I might need a bit of help with that. But just people coming in with similar things or suggestions. So where, I guess what I'm saying, we're looking at rejected efforts and sort of tossing them around a bit and see where it takes us. So would someone like to come in? Elizabeth.
When there's something like that with me, sort of the first question I have is what step in the process is the real rejected effort? Because you don't hate being there. You don't hate being in the park. That isn't the part that feels like, ugh. it's some step along the way.
Yeah,
And
it's starting. It's starting. I mean, you're quite right. I do not dislike being there. It's starting. It's almost sort of that simple.
yeah.
It's
And
getting there. Like with the swimming pool, it's just getting there, right?
mm-hmm.
Cynthia.
I'm sorry, I don't think Elizabeth was finished.
No, that's all right. Okay, back to Elizabeth. We don't quite know how we're going to do this bit yet.
I just wanted to put myself in the lineup.
Okay.
So may I say a little more?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So for me with the swimming pool, the rejected effort is standing there in the locker room, cold and wet, into and out of the pool. And either I'm going to have to come up with some kind of gimmick that makes me want to get there, even though I'm going to have to deal with standing in the locker room cold and wet. Or I might have to drive actually a little further to find the place that heats their locker room better. So like when there's something like that, either there's an organizational thing or there's a sensory thing. And for me, what I have to do is dig into what that is. Now I'm done.
Yeah, I think that's useful. That's a useful distinction for me, because both these things, it's an organizational thing. Yeah. Cynthia.
Well, one of the things when it comes to physical activity, exercise is also a rejected effort for me, but I have I'm working on that. And I think I have a plan for dealing with that. But one of the things that I found when it's something physical, and this may not apply to anybody else, but it does to me, I'm not always aware of my body, and I'm not always like things like if something hurts. And sometimes and it's happened to me where something that hadn't been a rejected effort becomes a rejected effort, it's because actually it hurts to do it. And I didn't realize it hurt. And like I said, that may not apply to you. You may be aware of, but also still, I mean, I think that and I'm young enough where some of this is still new, that things that didn't used to hurt, where, it's happening now. And, I just talking to my mother, it was her birthday. She's like, you have no sympathy for me. It's like, well, I know, but it's just starting for me. I'm a little over 50. So, but yeah, just it's sort of being aware, like, am I resisting exercise? Is there something, am I hurting? And that's something because it's happened to me a lot of, well, even before because I have bad knees, and when I was procrastinating sometimes about, something I had to do. And it was actually because my knees were hurting standing. And I had to be told by my spouse, well, of course you don't want to do if it hurts, I mean, so, because I don't know if that applies, but that was something that came to mind.
Do you want to come in, Nikki? I guess it's sort of like asking for feedback.
Hi. Yeah. What occurs to me, because I'm a bit taken with you picking up the thing from me that I've said that I've been doing during the winter lockdown, where I've got fatter and more unfit, so that makes me less energetic, and then that makes it harder to go for a walk, which is kind of all I do. But that thing that I found out, I make myself go for a walk every day. And if I haven't got it in me to drive myself to where it's a nicer walk. You know, that I go up on the common. That's more invigorating, more refreshing, more enlivening. But sometimes I haven't got it in me to do that, and I know that if that's going to be my aim to make myself go up there, then I end up not going, and it just feels like, I have to put my coat on, I have to do my shoes up, you know, and I have to drive. But if all I have to do is put my coat on and do my shoes up and walk out of the front door, and then I've started already, because I'm just going to do this local suburban walk that is really unsatisfying if I do it 2 or 3 days in a row, because it's just suburb, even though I do actually make it through 3 different parks as part of it, but it's basically houses, you know. So that's unsatisfying to do, but it is satisfying to do because I'm doing it on a day when I wouldn't be doing the thing that is more satisfying to do, if that makes sense. So it's all caught up with low expectations and with what I have to do, which is all about protect my rejected efforts in every department, in any department that's anything to do with the material world in any way. And I've just been doing that, you know, as my forefront thing for years and years. Otherwise, I would have ground to a halt. So I apply that same thing during lockdown, and especially during winter, where, yeah, I guess the difference is there's nowhere to go. So normally during winter, I can always make myself go out, because at the very least, I'm going to walk to a cafe to sit and write in my journal. So that's actually less walking, but I make myself go out because I'm getting the accepted effort, I suppose. I know I'm going to get the accepted effort of sitting there journaling, and that's properly an accepted effort. So whereas I guess, and I can look forward to that, but that's normal life. But with lockdown, there's nowhere to go where I'm going to get that. And the best I'm going to get is I might wander around in my head in a bit of an interesting way. I get a bit of something, a bit fresh coming in. But it makes it a lot more of an effort to make myself, and that's why I call it I have to make myself. And it's about, because I know that if I don't, I'll basically be lying down for a night and a day and another night in a row. Because I, left to my own devices, I have, you know, why stand up if you can sit down? Why sit down if you can lie down? That's how I tend to be. But if you're walking, you can't lie down or sit down. Anyway, so it's a bit long background about how I do it, but to apply it to you and the going to the park, and I think you, as like with everything else, you're much more not adventurous, ambitious than me. And so you want to go swimming, or you want to go for a run. So that's my equivalent of I want to be on the common because it's got more to offer me, but because I have to drive myself there, I'm not going to go at all. So you're doing that. You're wanting to run around the park, and because you're wanting to run around the park, and that's not an accepted action effort, you're not doing it. So I wonder, and then you picked up my phrase of make myself, and it appealed to you. So I wonder if you could just, it's small steps. You're not thinking small enough steps, because the minute you start thinking of running, then I think one starts thinking of, well, then I have to have the right shoes on. Oh, then you've got to think about shoes and coat, and it's just too complicated for your head. And if you just decided, no, I am every day going to walk up the park and back, because that's the tricky bit, the getting out. And you're going, if you took it really low and you're just going to wear what's right for just a walk, and you're just going to make yourself do a walk, you might be able to run a few feet inspired, because once you're out, you're moving. And then do that for a few weeks. And by then it's summer, and it then picks up. It's exactly the theory, isn't it? It applies a bit of feelings of accomplishment. It's like, oh, I've made myself have a walk in. I'd be in the park every day for 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. Wow, this is my thing that I do. And then the inspiration might arise, rather than deciding what you want to do from your head. And then it's like the spirit is willing, but the body is weak, isn't it?
Mm.
So much, much lower expectations. And if you're not doing it, there we are. That's the policy I've adopted in life. If you're then not doing the thing you want to do, you have not plummeted your expectations far enough yet, and that's the only problem. So
I say the last bit again.
If you're still not, that's how I do it. If I'm still not doing the thing that I want to do or have to make myself do for whatever reasons, I have worked out over the years, it means I might be thinking of it as a low expectation, because having low expectations is a very good way of trying to help ourselves do things. But in my case, because I have such a problem with rejected efforts in the material world, not in the emotional world, figuring things out, or caring life force world, not a problem at all. But material world, oh, dire. So I always tend to think that I have set myself low expectations. But then what I've worked out is, if I'm then still not doing the thing, I have not set the expectations low enough. And if it, lower, if it's that, I can't think of it in relation to getting out of the house. Just not dressing for it at all. Whatever is the thing. It's like, oh, I can't be bothered. With me, it's like when it's cold and everything, it's like, I've got to put on another layer and another layer and another layer, and then my shoes. Ugh. And then we're going to have to sweep up all the mud that I trail up the stairs when I come back in, because everywhere's been covered in mud till recently, because of everybody's out there walking on the grass. And it's like, oh, so it's just not a small enough. If it's then just walking to the supermarket and then tricking yourself, and it's like, I'll do a quick, slightly longer version around the park on the way back. My point is, if you're not doing it, you haven't set a small enough target. That's what I'm trying to say.
Let me just say this bit, because I think you will know. I think you know who Mr. Motivator is.
Mm.
And nobody else he will, because it's something on English. Okay. Anyway, he's been around for years, hasn't he, Nikki? Years and years.
Yeah.
And he's a very fit, very appealing Black guy who does exercise programs on television. And I happened to come across a bit of newspaper I was using when I was doing some decorating, that was Mr. Motivator's suggestions about Christmas, okay? So I just wanted to, because you know who he is, right, Nikki? Yeah. And he said, one of the things to do is, when you first get up in the morning, put your sneakers on. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out.
To be wearing them indoors.
Yes, you put them on as soon as you get up. That's what
So you're wearing them indoors.
yeah.
So then,
Yes.
therefore, the idea being, therefore, that means when you want to go for a run, you just walk out of the house as you are.
Well,
Is that
I
it?
think he was saying, and I've always been a bit intrigued by him because he's a bit of a turn off because he's over the top, and yet there's something about him I felt that was genuine. That he's a TV personality, okay. Now he was just saying it put you in a certain mindset because what he was doing was coming up with a whole lot of exercises you could do in the house over Christmas. That was
right.
It was an article
Yeah.
in the Nikki, okay, at Christmas time.
Mm.
Anyway, I just wanted to put that out in your view of Mr. Motivator, I guess.
Well, anything over the top completely has the opposite effect on me because I need micro doses of internally generated organic bits of hope to be able to get me to move towards doing anything. So that doesn't help me at all. But I can see, for me, the concept of if you had your shoes on already indoors, that meant I wouldn't have to have the obstacle of having to put my shoes on. That's one less thing, one less obstacle to walk out of the door with. I can see, in theory, if big enough space to exercise indoors, then have them on, and it's not about going out, it's about putting, doing exercises because you've got your trainers on indoors. If you put a leotard on like he still wears, you might be even more inspired.
Okay, I'm sort of aware of the time and struggling with this. I don't know how I can get this format going. So I wonder if someone else could come up with their rejected.
I just had a quick suggestion about what you're saying. I just noticed at the beginning of things, you talked about the strong effect the sunshine had when you were feeling low. And I wondered if you could do a little gimmick that was kind of making a contract to, if the sun's out, you go across the road into the park before the sun goes down, just as that very first small step.
Tamara, it's something quick or not?
It can't be quick because it's an embarrassment of riches. It's
okay.
I'll give one example. Like a root system, like redwoods or mushroom, mycelium, where there's just a net of negative memory links. And I'm wondering about the rejected effort being more about having a negative sense memories and negative memory links. So I'm going in that direction. And I've also been curious about hearing about breaking it down into smaller triangles. But we're running short on time and we have examples of rejected efforts. So I won't add mine here.
Okay.
I can tell you that there's something disturbing to me about no matter what the effort in whatever area. I've been having it's very physiological. The need to feel safe from pushing myself into places where I don't feel safe. And if I'm have an extremely critical, punitive voice in my head, then I can pick up anything that's a good intention and use it as a stick to beat myself with. And so that I don't think that that's really in line with staying focused on where we're talking about the bottom of the triangle today. But I'm reflecting a lot on this past year and wondering how my experience has been, so that anything I've picked up has been converted into bad memory links. Yeah.
Just in terms of, the sort of classic, if I can call it that way, Pelham way of working, it's not trying to teach the tool of those times, okay? We're just concentrating on creating nourishing relationships and trust. It's not
That's pretty profound what you're saying there.
Say again.
It feels profound what you're saying there. And again, I just picture that storefront and that safe place of just being first with
yeah, it is. It's it's knowing when to fish and when to cut bait. And sometimes I think we do it well. We know how just to, hell with all these tools, triangles and pendulums. You're trying to teach me mathematics. There are times when just to not worry about the tools and do something else. And that's important. I guess in a little bit, we sort of take that for granted, but I think I have a tendency to leave out the first two paragraphs, okay? So I need to put the first two paragraphs in. So thank you for bringing it up that way. And, I guess what we've got in Pelham and what I've got in terms of what I'm presenting here, I think what we can say we have in Pelham is just endless patience. So, we've got a toolbox, and I was even saying it's a bit crowded, but, if someone wants something different from that toolbox, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. There's something very wrong in this field when you're not, I'm trying to think of mild words at the moment, okay? Almost someone doesn't rate because they won't fit my boxes. There's something about that that's just awful, in my view. And yet it can be very insistent in this field. And it's not that long ago that, this is sort of off tangent for a moment, I guess it's the sort of thing I want in the forum, consistently as part of our, basic approach. It's not that long ago that, it's a couple 100 years, but all the official strain in physical medicine, there probably were exceptions, not many, you know, the thing to do was to bleed the patient. Bleeding the patient will really help, draw blood. And that was just totally accepted, you know, fact-based, research-based, whatever. And it was just wrong, you know. And we looking at it, you go into the doctor's office and you're going to be bled. So, you know, we need a modesty in our field. Anyway, thanks for getting me there, Tamara, because there are things I want to, you know, make sure repeated fairly often. Then in some time they'll just come off easy. Like transparency comes off easy, we just say, you know, it's useful in building trust for the person who's a practitioner to be able to be open about his or her life appropriately in a therapeutic relationship. Yeah. I need to come up with the brief statements. Anyway, I'll go off on too many tangents if I'm not careful. Does someone else want to come in with an example of a rejected effort? Cynthia.
Yes, and actually I kind of had to do a whole thinking through which one as I was, because I have a lot of things that are rejected efforts, semi-rejected efforts, and you know, it's very complicated. But I think for today, I think the one thing that it's really confusing and complex is that it's writing, which is bad because writing is my job in a lot of ways. I write, you know, I write for articles, I write, I've got like a couple reports that are due. One is late and one's due in a couple days. I've got to get an article out and I've got another one that's late. I mean, you know, I'm constantly late, you know, and you know, but I don't necessarily mind it when I do it, but sometimes I do. It's just this real complicated, and I know I'm pretty good at writing. I mean, at least I've been told that. You know, but and this is really bad because it's part of my. I mean, I think it's towards my purpose, but I'm constantly procrastinating. I'm constantly putting it off. And I am using gimmicks, and I just thought of how to use the gimmick I use to help me be more motivated to, and it's particularly writing for things that are due for other people, like my job. I mean, you know, which is, it's bad. And I don't know, I don't know what to do about this, and I don't know how to, you know, so yeah, I guess that's my big one.
So how we do this, I think you call on people for suggestions. I think that's, yeah.
Okay. Elizabeth has got her hands up, so.
Hi. So I identified possibly something that I've been dealing a lot with, that I just learned today was part of predicting accepted efforts, which is the focusing too much on the goal thing. And I'm wondering if that's playing a part with the kind of writing you're having to do, especially for clients and such, where it's becoming rejected because you're worried so much about the goal. And I'm wondering how that hits.
Perhaps. I don't know, but that could be part of it. I'm a passive listen to that.
I'm wondering if you've, I'm thinking of a program I did once that was 15 minutes a day putting aside for creative act of some kind, which is a bit what I tried to do what I did when I started working on the book that was my writing for the book about my husband that was a rejected effort. I'm wondering if you've tried anything like saying you only have to, you have to sit with your keyboard for, 10 minutes or something with, each day. I wonder if you've tried anything like that, where you've put yourself in the starting position, if you like. Can you get over the starting line with even just a sentence or two?
I can do that, and I have done that. Of course, 10 minutes a day is not going to cut what needs, in terms of is not, but see, and then I have to stop myself on that, because I do that, and I've actually have some success with that, where I just say, okay, before I do this, I'm going to at least open the document and write a few sentences, and then I can walk away. And then, and I can get myself over that hurdle, but I've got this voice in my head. I just answered to you about that, saying, well, yeah, 10 minutes a day. Well, there is a truth. Maybe that is that goal orientation. I'm not even gonna come close to making my deadlines on that. On that. And then I think, okay, well, so then it's not worth it. So I have, and I do have to make myself think, okay, you know what, maybe not a day, but if I do 10 minutes at a time, even if I take a break in between each 10 minutes, I'm still slowly building up what I need to do. And and I've been trying to work with my game and stuff like that, where, okay, well, I have to at least open the document and do this much, or write one section or write one paragraph. And the other thing I did yesterday or the day before, because one of the projects involves a big, because I have information all over the place. I'm doing a lifetime analysis for somebody on using a particular technique, and it involves having all sorts of papers and I was in a situation where, I didn't have time, once I pulled everything out, and if I started and I put everything back, I'd be spending more time taking things out and putting them back than actually writing. So I said, why don't I work on this other project that it's not as big of a priority, but it needs to get done, and I can do it for 15 minutes and I don't have to pull anything out. I just have to write. It's the article for my freelance client, and I did, and I got a little accomplished for that. So yeah, I think that there's it's this whole mental thing. I do a lot of buts with that. It's like, well, do 15 minutes and a day is not going to cut it, but 15 minutes throughout, in 15-minute chunks throughout the day will get it done. But I don't, and maybe it is that goal. It's like, well, and even some of them, like one of the artists is not that hard for my freelance one. I mean, if I actually sit and write it, actually sit and get it from beginning to end, it takes maybe an hour and a half. But
I think it's pretty
sorry.
clear in the way you're talking about it that, sorry if there's background noise, that it's hard for you to shift from the end goal, because you're framing everything in terms of the end goal. And I'm thinking of what Nikki said to Peter about the really low expectations, because in a situation like this where there's something that isn't written, then it is the somehow getting started is a more important goal than finishing, I think, in a situation like this, just because the getting started can, leaves room for repetition or growth, or, getting into it, whereas never starting doesn't leave any room for getting into it.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to reflect back to you that in the way you were talking about that, you're kind of sticking like glue to the end goal in the way you're thinking about it. So it's just, I don't know if anyone else has anything to add about that, but that's my thought.
I've got some things to say. It's not in relation to, well, not directly, but it's a bit related. Can I have a turn?
Yeah,
and not interrupting anybody. I was struck by that phrase just now about whatever it means, pulling everything out, pulling lots of things out, which I think means research, finding information and putting it together. So from this big project, for the big project, it sounds like that task-wise, that's the hard thing. Whereas, like you said, so you've got this smaller one that was an individual client, and that's easier. So it sounded like when you were just sitting with you having to create, that's easier. Whereas perhaps using something to do with using technology and well, yeah, that's maybe because I was trying to work this out in relation to life forces. So this pulling everything out business sounds like that's more of a material life force task and a bit tedious, just pulling this information and this information. And then the you sitting and writing is more creative, but also I'm wondering, is it about caring life force? Is that what actually helps motivate you? If you feel connected up to the particular client that you're writing up, it's about them, isn't it? It's deep about the person. It's not a project about how many widgets do they need to sell, is it? It's something personal, as I understand it, right? Am I right?
Yes. Well, one of the projects is just for anybody. I'm working, but I actually as a caring life force because I probably wouldn't keep doing this job. It doesn't really pay that much, but but I like the boss, so I like the person I'm writing for. It's for his website, and I'm doing Sinistry, and it's actually a project I don't mind doing. It's just, but it's more in general. But I am sort of thinking of people with this aspect between them and how to, thinking about the audience and somebody who's, looking at their own chart and trying to make their relationship work, and how this aspect works. So yeah, I guess I am thinking about the other person, but I think that's a motivator, and I hope I'm not breaking the rules, but that is something in there that also plays in the guilt about the goal, particularly, and I've noticed that I'm late with one person's stuff, then I feel guilty about everybody else because I'm feeling, and that motivator. And I remember listening, I think Peter was talking in the last one about feeling like thinking about how it impacts other people if you don't get it done. That is not motivating. In fact, that actually kills my motivation because then I feel guilty. And I don't know why feeling guilty steals my motivation, but it does. You'd think that the guilt would spur me on, but it doesn't. It's like I feel guilty. And I'm I guess I'm a terrible person, so I can't do anything. And that's so yeah, there is some of that. And then I'm worried if I'm going to say the wrong thing, and I'm actually, because people do. I joke people don't take my advice, but people do take my advice, and I don't want to get something, and I'm also afraid of getting something wrong so that I might give somebody bad advice and it hurts them, and that's always something that's also one of the fears that goes in my head. So anyways, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, so there's something all messy there that's about caring life force, because guilt is within caring life force, and fear, I'm going to give them the wrong advice and it's going to wreck their lives, and it's all my fault. Over responsibility kind of thing, that's an inhibiting factor that maybe what you're saying it's something to do with it. It just needs opening up more. I feel like in the wheel of change you need to do more sharing about your stuff, your memory links, that's what's in the way. You need it pulled out and sort of explored more. Which brings me to the other thing I was going to say. I've just thought of a way of relating it. A thing I read once about the author Graham Greene, how he used to write novels, and he wrote them longhand in an A4 book. And the right-hand page was for writing the next bit of the novel, But when he had to do that right-hand page of the novel, and when he got to the bottom of the right-hand page, his rule for himself was he was allowed, when he turned over, to write whatever he wanted on the left-hand page, which is that was just him exploring, sharing, blah blah blah. So I was going to suggest that anyway, and now I've just seen a link, hearing myself say, you need to do sharing about what the heck's going on for you. So if you had some computer equivalent of, you know, you've got the writing that you're having to do, which is kind of the equivalent on the right-hand page, and then you've done so much of it, and then you are allowed to write and explore the torment, the inner torture that you've just gone through. You're allowed the same number of space. And then, of course, the other thing for him, he was only allowed to do, once he'd run out of space at the bottom of the left-hand page, he's not allowed to turn over until he's written the next right-hand page of the novel. So I don't know if that would help.
Thank you. Peter, do you have any feedback?
Yeah, well, I guess I can say that in many ways this is one I've licked, okay? I guess I wanted to say that with some pride, because there wasn't a point there was a point where, this is a long time ago, 40 years ago, where I couldn't write, I turned out some things by dictating. I had a secretary who I dictated to, and she had good shorthand. That's the way the manual was produced, but I couldn't sit down and write. Anyway, I can now, and I've got a discipline that works. And I've written so much, I've created a problem. And what does work for me is the small amount every day. And this is something I don't say very often because I'm a bit embarrassed about it, my shyness. But I hit a hard spot about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I thought, my God, I'm going to get behind, And I remembered that a long time ago, like 10 years ago, when I went through a similar sort of hard spot, I came up with something called M5s. M5 apostrophe S, okay, M5s. Now, what M5s were 5 lines. So I would sit down and write 5 lines. And when I realized I was sort of going into this hard spot, I just brought that back, and it's just worked like a charm almost. So I would encourage, if you can get into it, and it's interesting how it parallels the Graham Greene thing a bit. His is 1 page. Mine was, well, my daily thing is 1 page. And I think what you just said, Nikki, about Graham Greene, I think I'm just going to talk about it. Really. I'll talk to you more about it another time, because I like Graham Greene a lot. Yeah, I just really would. And the other thing I would encourage is the gimmicks. Whether it's, because I now get my groceries. I do order online and they're delivered. I mean, that's just changed my life. But, yesterday I ordered flowers. I knew why. There are some times when I've gone a bit extravagant having flowers on my desk where I'm writing. And I guess I've been a bit relentless about bringing gimmicks, yeah. So And I think one of the things I think will emerge out of me reintroducing the triangle is just, you know, we got the triangle, and then within we got small triangles, small triangles, small triangles. Because, you know, the way I start talking about my writing, you know, it's this big project, you know, of which I've got a number on the go. Well, you talked about it, you know, well, there is as part of my job. Well, it is my job, but really coming up with small triangles. And it's a bit, you know, reiterating what Nikki said. If you're not getting it, I really liked it. Well done, Nikki. You know, if you're not getting it done, your expectations aren't low enough. I sort of like that. Yeah, I like that.
Thank you. And Tamara, did you have any feedback? I think it's the only one who hasn't. I think you're on mute because I hear you talking. I see your mouth moving and I don't.
It wouldn't be fair because I was taken out of giving you my full attention. I had to do something for 10 minutes for my feet and come back.
That's fine. I was no pressure if you don't have any. I just wanted to offer because you haven't, because I didn't. So it's, if you do, you do it. No, it's fine.
You know, I think I do hurt, which is I remember you know, as a student, I would spend all day in the library working, thinking that I would get my essay done. And instead, what I would do is start with an idea, and the whole day was wasted. I would change the subject by the end of the day, blah, blah, blah. And I remember my mother would say, well done, you got that day taken care of. If you hadn't done that useless day today, it would be waiting for you up ahead tomorrow. So for me, it helps to anything that has gone really shitty. I imagine that those catastrophes were waiting to happen, and they're, as a result of me taking them on today, behind me, so that I have that it's actually a way of not seeing it as wasted time. It was, I had to have those rejected efforts, and job well done. I did them today instead of leaving them for tomorrow.
I've got something going around in my head that's like that. So I really appreciate you putting it in the context of the triangle. And it's something you and I've talked about elsewhere, that there is something about talent and contribution training that at times is a little bit too self-improvement, a little bit sort of onward and upward with the arts, you know, positive thinking or something. So I think, yeah, at times it's necessary just to go through the hard times. And I think to be able to put that in the context of the triangle, so at times it's necessary to go through the rejected effort. And I think that, yeah, I think, thank you. I think that, and to be frank, it fills out the it fills out that side of the triangle. And you know how much I bring in my football team. But I guess there's no doubt that history is going to say that Joe Biden had to go through everything he had to go through. I mean, he was dead on the ground in New Hampshire not very long ago. Just dead. His career was over. No question, over. Cynthia.
Yes, I have one more question, and I think it's somewhere as I got all the feedback and I'm thinking about in terms of goal oriented, but there's like one big thing in there in terms of effort is managing the demands of other people. Because, some of the reason I'm like, well, if, even in terms of staying in accepted efforts too long, you've got, if it's your spouse, you can kind of work with your spouse. But then you have people like clients and employers and stuff like that. So how do you manage their demands while still doing what you need to do for you in terms of accepted and rejected efforts and that kind of thing?
Well, I guess.
Or is that another big subject that I've just introduced?
No, it's another big subject, but that we're doing these sort of practical, almost personal examples, and then that's getting us into big subjects. I think it's just great if we're doing that. But it is a really big subject, and we're quite our response to it, I think, is subtle and complex, because some of it's the life forces. And if it's, you said, this is my job, that's material life force. And if I'm in material life force, then I have to be unemotional, because that's what material life force is, about responding to your demands on me. And if I get into my caring life force, that's like sort of blowing an interview. A job interview is material life force, right? So, well, what are your points of vulnerability, Mr. Fleming? But, material life force, I'd say, well, at times I'm unreliable. In a job interview, you don't say that. You say, well, at times, there are times where I just might stay at the office too long. That's material. A job interview is material life force. It's not caring life force. And I guess just putting it in historical context, because Fritz Perls, the founder of Gestalt therapy, solved that by I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you're not in this world to live up to mine. And what we've done is sort of chucked that out the window and done something different with it. So it comes back to evaluation strata. But because of the life forces, we can be real. And again, it's sort of common sense. A lot of people in their intuitive, accumulated, unconscious intuitive wisdom, our definition of common sense will sort of know that. Okay, and the demand is there if I'm in my caring life force. And it could be kids, or it could be a spouse. We've got to say no. And mother having to say to a teenager, it doesn't fit the family finances for me to buy you a car on graduation. So, you know, I'm really sorry, sweetheart. And, you know, you'll do well by understanding money or however it's done. But that mom is stepping out of the caring life force and going into the material life force. So I think that's some of handling, handling other people's demands.
Thank you. Actually, it kind of, I kind of had some dreams about that too, about like, and it has to do with, and I guess it might be my performance life force. Is that performance life force being able to say, no, this is what I need to get this done, and you know,
Yeah.
I can't listen to your demands. I have to do what I need to do. Is that a performance life force, or is that something else?
Well, no, that could well be performance life force, because when we're really focused just on ourselves and what we're trying to produce in a sort of selfish way, that's performance life force. And it can be really nourishing or it can be destructive, but it's performance life force. And there is a way, there's not much doubt that the performance life force contains the best and the worst of us as a species. It just does. Or a species, a nation, you know. Performance life forces, the political tyrants and the great political leaders, just to put it in that context.
Mm. Yeah, I think it might be having trouble with because I think in a lot of ways writing, I mean, yes, I'm writing for other people, and yes, but there's a lot of, at least astrological is a lot of performance life force. And I think I have a hard time crowding out, not letting the material life force and the caring life force, you know, what other people want, and then also the material, whether or not I'm meeting the deadline for my employer so they'll pay me, you know, or for my client so they'll pay me for it, and I don't have to give the money back, you know, which is some of it. So I think, and my performance life force does get crowded out a lot, but I need the performance. I mean, in order to do what I'm doing, I really have to. So finding a way, because that's actually, I think that's when I really get into it and I'm enjoying it, is when I'm really letting myself be in my performance life force about it. But then when I start getting into, even if I'm doing something for somebody else to help them, it's still looking at their chart and finding answers. And I mean, I think that's performance. I think that may be what's going on, is that you know, and even doing the stuff, and I have tried that, you know, everybody is going to, you know, do smaller steps. And I mean, I've even told myself, you know, that's really silly to think, oh, I'm not getting the whole thing done, because you're getting more done if you do 10 minutes than if you've done nothing. So you know, you know, just on that pure practical level, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think it's that whole finding a way to, because I've got, yeah, and perhaps sharing with the whole performance life force and dealing with.
Yeah, I think the performance life force is very important in finding sustaining purpose. Okay, it's sort of for another time, because it's about making a commitment, taking a risk. And I think performance life force, which I haven't quite made enough of, I think performance life force is probably really important in being really creative about finding the gimmicks that will enable us to turn the rejected efforts into accepted efforts. And Mary, you gave me an exercise when I was in a really, really bad shape, probably 3-4 years ago. You know, do something in the performance life force every day. And I've sort of done it. I haven't done it, you know, I'd like to do it more. but that certainly fits with walking across and being in the park. And the I think if we're in a big accept, we've got to stop in a moment, I know. And I think we'll just continue with the same theme on Sunday. Examples of rejected efforts. But I think if we're in a really big, or I feel an accumulation of rejected efforts, I think the performance life force might be quite crucial. That's because apart from anything else, performance life force is the place where we find confidence. And it is a place where we find self-belief. As caring life force is the place where we find trust. But yeah, I think we could sort of continue with that. Performance life force title, turning rejected efforts into accepted efforts, the use of the performance life force. Because I can sort of feel it in myself. And Mary was we were quite pushy about that. Mary, just something every day, you know. And I've had this thought, which I really want to act on, of buying a bicycle, okay? And just because I got the park, I could ride the bicycle in the park. And I know, and there's a T-shirt that's around in America. Watch out for old guys riding bicycles, okay? So there's a certain sort of performance life force about that. You know, at my age, riding a bicycle, getting on the bicycle. Yeah, so I think there is something there that's quite important. And sort of going back to the Graham Greene, I was really sort of surprised with the information you gave Nikki, because I would have thought he just sat down and wrote, you know, but, you know, he needed that. So I think it can sort of free us up to bring in unusual things. I guess being able to be open about our own idiosyncrasies, because they work for us. Yeah, I mean, I know it's small, but, you know, holding up my pens, okay? You know, it's sort of, I think it's performance life force where we can be easily open about our idiosyncrasies. Yeah. Okay. We need to stop there and we'll just do the same. Yeah, bring examples next time. And we'll, yeah, we'll make more time for it. And it's now getting beginning to get dark in Norfolk in England at little after 7:30. Do you want to go next, Nikki?
I'm Nikki in Wimbledon, and I'm finding it really interesting hearing, you know, I know it'll get more interesting. Everybody different, very different struggles about one department of life. I think it's going to be useful to me. Thank you.
Right. Mary?
I'm Mary in Rosarito Beach, and it's just after 11:30.
Okay, tomorrow.
Mara in San Francisco. And I'm really glad that we're spending time with lots of time with this. with this piece of the work.
Cynthia?
Thank you.
Cynthia in Kankakee, it's about 20 to 2, and thank you. I really appreciate all the feedback. Thanks a lot.
Okay, well, watch this space. See you on Sunday. We've got a title for what we're doing on Sunday. And yeah, I want to thank you because I really want to bring the triangle back so it has as much sort of zing around Pelham as the pendulum does. And you're giving me the opportunity to do that. So that's great. Okay. Well, yeah, watch this space. Okay. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.